Patrick Menil back here with you as we continue to highlight stories about hockey on Cape Breton Island and its rich history. And today we're joined by a gentleman you probably know as John Hanna, but we can call him John Hanna III because he comes from a long line, a great hockey family. John, tell us what it meant growing up with the Hanna name, because your dad played in the National Hockey League growing up.
Well, there was a lot of pressure on me. I felt a lot of internal pressure, but it never came from my dad. But it was a pretty cool experience. I was fortunate enough to live all over North America, growing up in rinks, going in dressing rooms with a lot of famous people. But I wasn't an oppad. It was a way of life for me. You know, it was business as usual, like every other person would live their day-to-day lives, maybe go to work with their parents. I went to the rink with my dad and was able to take in all of that. So there's a lot of memories, met a lot of great people along the way. Lived in a lot of cities along the way. Every year was a challenge for me with a new school and new friends. But you know what? I think every place I looked, and people always ask, you know, how are the people in this place or that place? There's great people all over this world, and I was fortunate enough to be a part of that.
Now, you talk about being around the world, and Cape Breton may be a little bit more cosmopolitan than people realize, and your dad was identified as, I believe, the first player of Lebanese descent to play in the NHL, and that meant a lot to somebody like Blair Joseph, of course, who's in Cape Breton as well. Tell us how proud of that was he?
Well, you know what, he was fortunate, and back in the day, Pat, there wasn't a whole lot of exposure here in the Maritimes for any players, and I go back to the story that Scotty Bowman told when he was in a coaching symposium, and Pierre Maguire was the host, and Scotty Bowman said, you know, the big three that came out of the Maritimes, and it was Parker McDonald, Al McNeil, and John Hanna, paved the way for everyone else. So that brought scouts into the Maritimes to see players like Norm Ferguson and Jigger Andrew and these people. So after having said that, you know, he was very proud of his heritage as well, and proud of the fact that he was a Cape Bretoner and helped pave the way for some of the players behind him. But he was very proud to be of Lebanese descent. He was the first player in the National Hockey League of Lebanese descent, and I see it today. There's a hockey card with him with a turban on, you know, in his first year. So I don't know if that could happen today or not, but it was pretty cool. He always came home, always looked after not only the Lebanese but the Cape Breton community, and he was a great ambassador until the day he passed away. And to tell you a little story, he used to get little hockey cards made, because every time he met a little child or a little kid or a little hockey player, he used to dig out a card, he used to sign it, he used to sit down and chat, whatever they wanted to chat about. He was an extremely good people person, and I think the people of Cape Breton, and especially the local community and the Lebanese community, certainly appreciated who he was.
Of course, you mentioned the Memorial Cup, and everybody in Cape Breton, that's the dream of players and fans, to see their team win the Memorial Cup. And you had the chance to do so in 1984, right around the time that was starting to become a very high-profile tournament. It was right after they changed to the four-team host format. Walk us through that tournament and winning behind enemy lines there in Kitchener.
That's right. Well, and back then the Memorial Cup format was different. You know, the host team didn't automatically get in. The host team get in, but if you were to play the host team in the final, you didn't get in. So we ended up playing Kitchener in the OHL final. Kitchener was hosting, so we had to earn our way in. We weren't an automatic bid, so we had to beat Kitchener in the final, which we did to get to the Memorial Cup. So we were fortunate enough to do that at a time where, you know, it was in Kitchener. Laval were in from the Quebec League. Mario Lemieux, it was his draft year. And fortunate enough to win it. So it was a pretty cool experience. And my dad made the trip, which was special again, because back then, you know, there wasn't a whole lot of travel. So one of the highlights of my career for sure. And you know, you talked earlier about one of my dad's highlights. He often mentions, in terms of the highlight of hockey, would be probably as a proud dad. Sure. That moment for sure.
Now, I mentioned you didn't get a chance to play junior at home, but you are in Cape Breton to play with the Oilers the first year. Walk us through the conversation that Dave Andrews talking to you on the team, and what was the general excitement like in the community for the fact the AHL was coming?
Yeah, I remember the buzz in the community, and I had committed to go play university, and again back to the education thing, and it was great. It was, you know, CBU had just gone through their inaugural season in the AOS, they're playing against the big teams, the Dalhousie Tigers and the Moncton Blue Eagles, and those teams in St. FX. And Dave Andrews was actually coached against me in the Western Hockey League. So I had a little connection. Dave knew who I was prior to. And I actually, part of our junior days in Ottawa, we used to play the national junior team in a couple exhibition games before they went to the World Junior. So Dave was also around at that time because he was part of the Olympic team, so there was a connection there. So Dave kind of convinced me, he said, John, he says, there's an opportunity here for you. I know you can play, why don't you come and play? So make a long story short, I left school again for another year and went to the American Hockey League. Real fortunate to play at home for the first time. Played with one of my best friends, Fabian Joseph, one night on the line. Jack McKeegan was another local player who ended up playing some games. So it was real cool. The place was packed all the time, as you can recall, Pat. There was electricity in the city for the first time. We had a real major event here in Sydney and Cape Breton, and I think everyone gravitated to that and certainly supported a great deal.
Now, you talk about Cape Breton ties. Joey and Chris finish up your first year, but the second year you're with the Eagles, and a lot of people may not remember this, or the younger fans might not know, that was the year the Eagles were most dotted with Cape Breton talent. You had Bourgeois, Sean Cusner from Glace Bay, had Stephen Horrell from New Waterford, Kalen Paul from Member 2, Ashton Bernard from Eskasoni, Nick McNeil from Craignish. Hope I'm not forgetting
McIntosh
from the north side, and you had a couple of guys doing cameos.
Right.
Derek Larod from Inverness,
right.
and even Justin Chason from Shedicamp.
Exactly.
Probably a couple I'm forgetting. Well, how proud were you to just be involved with a team that just had such Cape Breton content? It was one of the top teams in the league, too.
Well, and you know what? And as a coach, it really doesn't matter where they're from, right? You want the best players. We all want to win. But to have the local content that we did and be so successful, you know what? It was great for everyone in the community. Not only those players themselves, but now all of a sudden, all the minor hockey kids are looking up into all these different communities, and they've got players playing right here for the Q. So that gave, everyone the inspiration and the desire to maybe want to be one of those players one day. So it was a real cool experience, there's no question. And I was proud to be part of it.
Yeah, and as I said, too, it's worth noting this was not a team that was loading up on local players for attendance. It was one of the top teams in the league, ends up losing in the first round because the playoff format was a bit divisionally slanted, but still pretty cool to look back and see all those Capers in the lineup. I wanted to ask as well, lastly, we talked about you working at Riverview High School, and as a result of that, I know you've been the chair for the Red Cup tournament in the past. What is it about Red Cup? Because you see this tournament as opposed to all the other high school tournaments, the place is packed. You got the Eastlink cameras are coming in, rolling. It's just, it's so exciting, and people are so into it. What is it about Red Cup that's so special?
Well, I could sit here for an hour and just talk about the Red Cup. But to give you a little bit of background history, so my minor hockey coach when my dad retired and I first came home was Bob McKenzie, who was the principal of Riverview High School. He, in 1978, started the tournament. He wanted it to be the community's tournament, not Riverview High School's tournament. So I think right off the bat, the community obviously supported. But the way the students support and the spirit is incredible. It became a tradition that became the highlight and the flagship of Riverview High School for a number of years. Unfortunately, it got to a point while there was COVID that kind of disrupted things for a couple of years and it kind of lost its momentum. But it got to a point where it almost outgrew the tournament itself in terms of size and logistics and liability and everything else that went with it. Listen, I was the chair for over 20 years. There's a lot of time and effort put in by a lot of people, a lot of community people. But the true credit goes to the students who support it year after year and the community who you can come and see sitting in the same seats every single year. Everyone should be proud of the Red Cup because everyone had a huge part in it.
Yeah, it's been a couple of rough years with COVID and everything, so hopefully this is the year that Red Cup gets to rebound. Well, John, thank you for this, and thank you for everything you've done in all the different venues in Cape Breton hockey over the years. It's fun to revisit some of those times.
It's always happy. Nice chatting, Pat.
That's it. John Hanna, who's currently Assistant General Manager of the Cape Breton Eagles. We didn't even get to touch on that because there's so much else that he's done as we continue our look at different stories around this great game of hockey, around this great island that we call home, Cape Breton.